Hey, this is Sydney, and I am here to talk us through the astrological time frame of December 3rd through the 9th, 2025. It has been yet another week, and we're going into another doozy of a week. And I am here to hopefully make some sense of things and keep us in a calm headspace as the wheels go round and round. I'm going to go through some basic notes, but also as a reminder, I do split these up into day by day readings that will go onto my TikTok and also to my Instagram and Facebook. You'll be able to find the links below. If you hear my dogs in the background, I will try very, very much to edit them out, but I have a bulldog and he is a really loud breather. It turns out they're very loud breathers. I have readings available. You can schedule on my website, which is ddastrology.com, or you can always email me if you need a time that isn't available on there. I just have, other hats that I wear, and so those are the times that I for sure can make available. Okay, yeah, December 3rd through the 9th. I'm going to be talking about Wednesday through Tuesday, so Mercury's day through Mars's day. And I am recording this on Tuesday, December 2nd, around 10 a.m. on the dot. It is cold, so hence the multiple layers. It's super fun. Oakland is a freezing space right now. I live in an old warehouse, and so there isn't a lot of insulation to begin with. So I am getting all of the use out of every single one of my layers this season. I digress. Basic notes for this week. We will have a full moon, and that is going to happen on the 4th. Mercury is still very, very slow right now in the sky, just having turned direct on the 29th. It needs to get to 6 degrees Sagittarius to clear the shadow, which is about December 17th. So we're still in the kind of the cleanup phase, right? So this can be conversations, things that you started to investigate, those sort of things. We're still having to traverse some old territory, just recently visited territory. Mars is out of bounds until January 3rd, and it's not in the greatest condition right now. So out of bounds really means that it's acting a little bit eccentric and, kind of crazy. There's been some, I would say, like extreme, out of the ordinary, I guess it's kind of ordinary, it's America, levels of violence and aggression that just kind of don't make sense, right? Like we had that shooting at that children's party that happened this last week. I think it's right about the time that Mars went out of bounds. Yeah, so he's also a bit peregrine, so he's just kind of not resourced in the ways that we necessarily would want him to be. And under the beams of the sun. So it's kind of acting in ways that we can't see altogether. It's kind of, he's a little bit in a rough condition, let's just say. Let's be careful about how you use your anger and aggression. It might not be exactly as it's supposed to be. Venus is combust, will be combust for a while yet. This is just the phase in which, the things around, especially Venus in Sagittarius, is, she's really like wanting to seek her freedom. She's adventurous, she's a little bit philosophical. She might be a little bit of an escapist wanting to take off. It's really about fun and adventure and exploration and, she loves to travel, those sorts of things, but maybe not all of those things are ultimately what we need to be focused on in terms of Venusian topics like love and things like that. And so when I think about the sun kind of burning away when a planet is in combustion, it's like, oh, it's burning away these things that it ultimately doesn't need so that it can be renewed into this place where it's better, it's renewed, it's fresh. But combust for a while. This is the last week of Mercury in investigative Scorpio. He'll enter Sag, a sign of his detriment, in December 11th. The moon is out of bounds. And will be out of bounds until Sunday around 7:15 p.m. Sunday is the 7th of December. We still have that grand water trine happening involving Mercury in Scorpio, retrograde Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces, retrograde Neptune in Pisces. It's still in effect all week. So we're still having a lot of emotions, a lot of flowing, like this kind of internal emotional expansion. It kind of feel it like a whirlpool of like energy where we're kind of making these emotional and intuitive shifts inside of ourselves, but nothing's really quite popping out yet. I think this is going to be in effect until Mercury enters Sag next week. And there's kind of a kite forming. So things are kind of moving. And I think we also felt that with Saturn going direct last week, that things are kind of starting to move forward instead of all of this like internal backwards or kind of stale or stagnant whirlpool of energy. Now it's starting to kind of spill out the edges, perhaps. All week, we have Mercury trine Saturn, perfecting on Saturday, December 6th, but not fully separating for a few days after that. So this is a great time for negotiations and contracts, having serious conversations, really deep, serious conversations, making ideas into reality, or trying to set up those structures of how to like take these deep ideas and like put some sort of like foundation to them. Finding gravitas in your words, being taken seriously for what you say, especially if there's like a more emotional or psychological nature to these things, right? We want to be taken seriously should we decide to speak. And this can also mean like we get really serious about some sort of idea that we're having as well. So it's a good time for that. That's like one of the biggest players for this whole week. The big player for this week, though, is Mars in Sagittarius forming its square to Saturn in Pisces. This is a frustrating, conflict-ridden struggle of a square, right? This is the two malefics, Mars and Saturn, the lesser malefic and the greater malefic. The baddies, quote unquote, the baddies in the sky, right? The ones that bring strife and hardship and stops and delays and fighting and strife, right? Are having a fight in the playground. And I think that this is really important for us to pay attention to where this 25th degree of Sagittarius and also Pisces are in our chart, because you can find where the two places in life or the two people in life or the two areas of life that are in conflict with each other and can feel like you're kind of going at it right now. Now we need to remember that this can also be more of a collective energy if you don't have anything at this 25th degree of the mutables. This may not be happening for you. If you don't have anything at 25, around the 25 degrees of any of the planets right now, this square could just pass you by. And I hope it does, because it's banging the hell out of my chart right now. And it's not fun. So, wishing you the ability to escape from this transit. I will get into it more as we go further. Okay, I think those are like the big players. And let's move forward into some stuff. All right. So here we are. December 3rd is Wednesday. Wednesday is Mercury's day. Moon is out of bounds. It's in Taurus, so it's very cozy here. It loves being in Taurus. It's having a good old time being, in its warm little blankets and having its, hot chocolate and its soup and all of that. But we're going to have, more of a stabilizing sort of behavior from us emotionally, kind of, but almost like with the out of bounds moon in Taurus, it's like really, really trying to hold it down. Really, really trying to be more stable than it's ever been before, more secure, more safe than it's ever tried to be before, more cozy, more comfy. There's the idea of more and more, right? Because of the out of bounds kind of player. And it could be doing this in kind of strange ways, the out of bounds way that it does it. emotions could be a little bit over the top. And with a moon in Taurus, it's need for security, safety, sensuality, pleasure. We have the moon is going to go void at 11:15 a.m. until about 6:48 p.m. when the moon is going to enter Gemini. We have, however, I would say like a pretty good amount of working aspects for the day. I do think that we wake up a little out of sorts. We have, moon quincunx Mars, moon opposite Mercury. This is at 4:57 a.m. and 6:06 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so quite early, unless you're on the East Coast, and that's really like mid-morning. So I think we need to make some emotional adjustments around how we're trying to like go after the things that we desire, what we're trying to do. And we might need to be a little bit cautious around how we're expressing ourselves because we're not really in sync, right? The moon really getting into this opposing place with Mercury says like how I feel and what I'm thinking aren't really jiving right now. It is kind of security based, maybe not feeling so safe. So like, let's just be a little bit cautious. Then we get into these working aspects. We have moon sextile Jupiter, moon sextile Saturn. This is really nice, kind of holding it down, allowing us to like kind of expand emotionally and feel a bit secure in that way with the sextile to Saturn. These are really nice aspects to kind of like plow along in your day. And I think of that when I think of a moon in Taurus. It's like, it's just kind of deliberately, diligently going after the things that it needs to in order to feel good. And this is, kind of a good moment here. At 5:07 p.m., we're going to get the moon conjunct Uranus. And so this could be some sort of habit shift. This could be some sort of destabilization in terms of how we're feeling safe and secure, because Uranus in Taurus, retrograde, mind you, is really... he went back into Taurus just to kind of shake things up, shake up our ground. And so maybe something emotionally is getting shaken up here too, because of the work that we've been doing earlier on in the day, right? Like we did the work and now we can kind of make some sort of shift in a positive way for the better. 5:50 p.m., we're going to get the moon sextile Neptune. This is a time to just kind of relax, maybe get a little bit in a dreamy space, imaginative, intuitive, kind of spiritual. There's an ability here. You have to make the effort with the sextile, but it's not a bad aspect. It's a nice little like chill out, watch a movie, engage in pleasure and art, that sort of thing. At 6:48 p.m., we are going to get the moon entering Gemini. This is usually where we get a little bit more inquisitive, externally processing, a little bit chatty. We're curious. It's a curious moon. So definitely a vibe shift. And then at 9:53 p.m., last aspect of the day, we are going to get the moon trine Pluto, which is nice to kind of like get to the bottom of things. And maybe like you have some sort of conversation, this externally processing Gemini moon that allows us to kind of get to a deeper curiosity about how we're feeling or what we're trying to know about ourselves, maybe. We could also just be experiencing kind of more powerful intuition and feeling at this time. And internal processing meets external processing. There's kind of an amplification of the moon in Gemini with this trine to Pluto in Aquarius. Moving forward into December 4th, which is Thursday. Thursday is Jupiter's day. Jupiter days are good for engaging in spirituality and prayer and philosophical pursuits, things that make you feel like expansive. And since Jupiter is in exalted Cancer and also retrograde, I think this is a good day to maybe pay attention to how we are expanding emotionally, internally, how we are kind of spreading our internal wings, or maybe around the ways that we're understanding ourselves and the ways that we have been shifting emotionally. And certainly we've had the opportunity to, because of this grand water trine that is also happening with Mercury, with Saturn, Neptune, and with Jupiter retrograde. So this like passionate, intuitive, psychological, kind of spiritual, emotional, internal kind of whirling that's happening. I do feel that emotionally, I've kind of been in this like weird flow state where I'm like understanding things in this like spiral kind of deeper sort of way. Not that it has anywhere to go right now, but there's this kind of spinning. So maybe allowing ourselves to just kind of take a moment to be in a contemplative meditation around the ways that we are internally expanding. All right, so today I think is going to feel a little bit more untethered. And one of the biggest reasons for this is that we do have a full moon in Gemini at 13 degrees. Full moon days are always a time where we can feel really out of sorts. We can feel, fatigued, a little bit exposed. We're having maybe some sort of awareness. Something is coming to light in our lives. Full moon in Gemini can really be about, this is a right brain, left brain sort of thing. The Gemini archetype is really about your curiosity and information and data. And the Sagittarius archetype is really about like knowing and that connection to the like broader like God or whatever you would consider to be a God. So there's something here about how we're thinking and believing about things. And certainly I think we're having a lot of conversations around what we really believe and what we really think, especially because we have all of these things with AI. What you're seeing is maybe not what you should be believing. That could be, a part of the story. We're going to want to pay attention to where 13 Gemini is in the chart. Let me pull up the full moon chart. Here is the Gemini full moon. So here we are with the moon and the sun in opposition. That is what full moons are. It's when we can see the moon fully in its round, supple softness, right? Bringing up things from the dark into the light. So there's an awareness thing here. When we have a opposition, it usually means some sort of awareness point, culmination point. Something is full, something we are now aware of. This can bring up relationship issues. We want to know where 13 Gemini and 13 Sag are in our chart because that's the axis in which it's being kind of lit up right now, right? The interesting things, there's so many interesting things about this. This full moon is particularly juicy. It is perfectly square the nodes. And so it brings something about the future and the past into its awareness. It is a mutable grand cross, which can kind of feel, I think, like being pulled in 4 different directions all at once. The mutability of the grand cross wants us to be very flexible. And I think that one of the only ways that we get through this period of time in our life, in this life right now, is if we are learning to be very, very flexible and be curious, that moon in Gemini, that we are also wondering bigger questions about how this all fits into like the larger end all be all, into our idea of divinity, right? That Sagittarius sun. What is the meaning of all of this? How do I fit my ideas into the meaning of all this? I think there's something here about discernment with that South node in Virgo, and something about belief with that North node in Pisces. Other things that are inside of this full moon period is that we have a Mars co-present and Venus co-present. So there's a lot of kind of Sagittarius activity here. We need to remember that Mars is out of bounds at this time, and so whatever's kind of becoming aware, maybe now we want to do something about it. We want to push forward. We want to like trailblaze forward and like take off into the sunset with like what we believe in and try to get it done. However, we do have this square that is still forming between Mars here and Saturn, this mutable square that is demanding that even though we are pushing forward, we are kind of meeting a wall and kind of being held back. It is the principle almost of having our one foot on the gas and the other one on the brake, and they're kind of not very stable holding each other, right? Because I think of the mutability, it can't really hold both, so you feel super stuck. I think that this is the sort of energy of like, you take, one step forward and then like half step back and then like 2 steps forward and then 2 steps back. There's a very changeable sort of stuckness. But if we are very patient and if we are very diligent about how we use our energy and our wisdom here, I think that we can get through this square having maybe completed something, if not all of it, probably not all of it, but something so that we can feel somewhat accomplished. An interesting thing about this square is it is an overcoming square from Mars to Saturn. So Mars is like dominating Saturn. It's like, I am pushing forward, right? And with that out of bounds nature, it's like, I am balls to the wall, going to do what I need to do in order to achieve the thing that I believe in. You know, maybe this is like forcing your self-righteous anger on somebody or something like that. So we need to be careful about how we're using our energy, right? This is almost like the principle, like Mars being like warriors or soldiers or military coming against like Saturn, which is more like authority figures, religious authority. You know, there's stuff here. There's so many things going on here. Both of these planets are ruled by that Jupiter in Cancer, and Jupiter in Cancer is kind of feeding this Saturn. I think helping the Saturn kind of hold its, like trying to hold back Mars, right? It's kind of enabling with this trine, like feeding into, offering its blessings to kind of hold back the force and the pressure of Mars. So be cautious with how you are engaging with your energy, because you can blow through and whittle out real quick. But if we're just diligent, if we're just patient enough, maybe we can be successful in what we are trying to do. We need to remember here too is that Mars in a few days, I think like maybe a week or so time, next podcast is going to also meet with this square with Neptune. So after it squares Saturn in a couple days time on the 8th. So this is baked into this full moon, right? Maybe this is awareness of how we need to kind of diligently push forward, even though we don't want to, or it's hard, or it feels like a struggle. We just need to put one foot ahead of the other. But then it's going to hit Neptune, which is just kind of like a disillusionment. I didn't get enough done, you know? So I just think we just need to be very careful, just very careful here. The Grand Water Trine is definitely in some sort of action at this time, you know, so we're feeling passionate, we're feeling sensitive, we're feeling, you know, in deep, watery, emotional, psychological sorts of ways. We do have a little bit of a kite action with Mercury coming up to oppose Uranus retrograde. However, it's not perfect yet. So I think that whatever this full moon is bringing up for you, we have possibly a few more days yet to really figure out what all it's about. I do think that ultimately so much of it has to do with the like psychological internal expansion that we are all like going through. And maybe we all need to grow emotionally so that we can learn to take care of each other and to care, North Node and Pisces, to really try to be one of the whole instead of this like independent, you know, only what I need matters sort of thing. Who knows? Maybe that's just me. I would say be really cautious and careful with how you use your words today. There could be a little bit of some zingers or some ouch that is also in the sky, because we do have this Mercury quincunx Chiron. This is really, you know, the ability to say things that wound and are a little bit sharper than you would want them to be. And also, now that we have Mercury moving forward, we do know that Mercury did have this hit to Chiron a few days back. And so this might be a conversation or something comes up that was already gone over and now you're doing it again. So you might need to make some sort of psychological adjustment with the wound that you are like picking up or picking the scab at, sort of thing. Be careful of self-righteousness. And At the end of the day, we're going to have Moon sesquio square Pluto. This can feel really psychologically ouchy. And so I think that this whole day is really colored by too much emotional processing, lots and lots of psychological adjusting, and certainly potentially the need to externally process, but we should be cautious about how we do so. All right. Friday, December 5th is Venus's day. Venus days are good for engaging in pleasure and beauty and being social and having fun with your friends and engaging with art, right? It's a good day for beauty. Venus is combust, maybe she's a little bit weaker than we would want her to be. That being said, Venus in Sag is certainly a happier Venus than Venus in Scorpio. Today, emotionally, I think we could be doing better. 6:23 a.m., Moon opposite Mars, them fighting words are potentially wanting to express maybe some of the frustration or anger or passion that we have been maybe bubbling up from the surface, especially with the full moon the day before. So we could be feeling pretty irritable as we wake up. So let's be careful of that. 6:46 a.m. we get the moon sextile Chiron. Maybe there's a ability to engage in a little bit of empathy, emotional wisdom here. We could be also just feeling a bit sensitive, and considering the aspect before, yeah, probably a bit sensitive. 7:24 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to make some emotional adjustment around the things that we are thinking, right? Moon quincunx Mercury. We could be feeling a bit anxious, and we need to make some sort of shift or change, habit break around maybe what we're telling ourselves, right? Something here. And then we're going to hit kind of maybe our emotional limit, feel a little bit blocked or restricted or overwhelmed by this sort of like responsibilities or pressures that we have on us emotionally. Could be feeling a little bit blue. 10:19 a.m. Moon square Saturn. Mars trine at Chiron. 2:03 p.m. I think we're going to be feeling a bit sensitive. I think we're going to be potentially wanting to take matters into our own hands. We need to remember that Mars is also very much in this square phase with Saturn. So we need to be careful about how we are acting out in order to try to heal ourselves, right? This is what I need to do for myself. Let's be cautious about that because we could be hitting a wall and not being able to get as much done as we would want to. Moon square Neptune at 4:55 p.m. We could be feeling a bit emotionally confused, a bit blue, maybe a bit overwhelmed. We're trying to kind of emotionally process or like think about what we're feeling, but like Neptune's clouds kind of come across and says, yeah, but you don't get to, this is John Cena, you can't see me completely. So don't believe everything that you're feeling at that time, because I think that the emotions could just be a little bit too big. It's also at a very critical degree at 29, so I think more than anything, if you could engage with something that feels a bit more maybe spiritual or even artistic in order to kind of work through what you're feeling today, that would be a good thing. 5:54 p.m., we're going to go into the moon entering Cancer, which means, at home, feeling a lot better, perhaps maybe that disillusionment, that emotional disillusionment that we kind of went through, or confusion, and now there's a little bit of clarity. We enter a feeling space. Maybe this is kind of a release, right? A good cry, a sensitive cry. 9:06 p.m., we are going to get the moon quincunx Pluto. This can just feel like anxiety. So we need to remain calm, just emotionally calm. We need to make some sort of adjustment, some sort of shift or change, emotional change, psychological change, habitual change to how we are maybe engaging with our obsessions, with power and control dynamics, and certainly with how deeply we want to get into our minds, right? Like sometimes you just don't need to be digging as far. And the moon in Cancer just feels deeply, right? It's a watery moon. So just be cautious in the evening about maybe the frustration or the anxiety that could be coming up in the evening. Saturday, December 6th is Saturn's day. Saturn's days are good for really working on the things that you are trying to accomplish. This could be chores, this could be tasks, this could be the mundane responsibilities in order for you to maintain your life. This could be cleaning the gutters. This could be gardening. But there's something there, the Saturn in Pisces, conjunct Neptune, retrograde in Pisces, we're still having these like dissolving structures and also this melding of reality and dreamscape. And maybe it would be a good time or a good day to contemplate, what dreams do you want to make real? How do you engage with reality and fantasy in healthy ways? There's lots of philosophical questions we could be asking ourselves about that right now. Certainly. All right. Today we get Mercury trine Jupiter at 5:05 a.m., which is a really lovely aspect. I think that this really allows us to have maybe supportive conversations. We're still within this grand water trine. We're feeling a lot. Maybe we're having like bigger, broader ideas. Jupiter is kind of lending this support to Mercury, and so is Saturn, right? So there could be just like expansive ideas around how to create one's reality and vision. And we're like emotionally and psychologically able to like really diligently think in like these intense, critical, passionate, deeply curious, penetrative ways to make that into something. This feels dreamy to me, but this feels dreamy in a sort of way where it's like, yes, I understand the crux of this idea, and now I know how to make this reality fly. It's just expansive thinking, certainly. And there is a psychological perspective to that, like an emotional, intuitive sort of thing happening with that as well. Moon conjuncts Venus at 5:22 a.m. We might need to make some sort of emotional shift around our relationships. We could be feeling a little bit discombobulated or unsettled in how we are engaging in relationships, maybe how we're having conversations with women, about women, the idea of mothering. Certainly any issues with money could be coming up at this time, values. The moon in Cancer wants to be very safe. And Venus in Sagittarius isn't really about safety, it's about adventure. And so the moon kind of needs to make a little bit of a shift to maybe play a little bit more in Venus in Sagittarius's sandbox, right? Like maybe it needs to make some sort of shift where it's like, okay, maybe I can go into my backyard. That seems adventurous today. Moon Sesame Square Mercury at 8:43 a.m. I think this just feels really frustrating, emotionally frustrating. We can't really quite communicate all of the ways that we're feeling. And even though we have that very supportive Mercury trine Jupiter, I think there's maybe we can't really like get the words out, or we're not emotionally fully connected to that idea yet. We come to the quincunx phase with the moon quincunx the sun. We need to make some sort of adjustment. This is anxiety, free floating, fun anxiety. It's how we feel and how we are not jiving. They're just not jiving. They're not making sense together. And again, the quincunx aspect, the aversion aspect between Cancer and Sagittarius is always so fascinating to me, because it is about safety and freedom. And how do we reconcile those things? By walking the tightest of tight ropes, right? By taking little risks, but not huge jumps to completely put us off kilter. The I would say probably the most frustrating aspect of the day happens at 7:26 p.m. We are going to have Venus sesqui-square Chiron, and I think this is really where relationships could take some sort of hit, feeling maybe unseen, how a Venus in Sagittarius wants to be free, and maybe you're not able to reconcile that with how you need to be taken care of in relationships. But it's frustrating, certainly, because a sesqui-square is a square and a half, and so it's like a rock in a hard space and hitting your head against the wall. And it could potentially cause some sort of wounding or extreme sensitivity inside of your relationship. So we must be cautious. December 7th, Sunday. Sunday is the sun's day. The sun is in Sagittarius, likes being in Sag. He's got triplicity there. He's just flying in the sky, just expansive, adventurous, fired up, passionate. It's a happy sun. All that being said, I think we're still a little cranky, a little sensitive, and we're needing to still be very, very careful about how we're using our energy, being all fired up and trying to get stuff done. Let's start in the middle of the morning. Moon square Chiron, emotional sensitivity, definitely very, very prickly. And then we're going to get a sesqui-square from the moon to Venus. Venus in Sagittarius. Again, I think this is also emotionally prickly in the realm of relationships. Moon conjunct Jupiter. What a lovely little, I think, respite. It's almost a balm in that moment where now we are able to, I think, one, we're feeling pretty emotional, right? The moon is still out of bounds. And so, with Jupiter also coming into contact with it, there is an over-the-top kind of moment here, but also, themes around security, emotional security, certainly, and sensitivity. If you feel like crying at this time, I would definitely think that you should. And I think that you will be potentially helped as well by Mercury trine Saturn being perfect today, 8:57 a.m. Mercury in Scorpio, which is here, trining this Saturn. Thus, the moon is kind of waking up this grand water trine, psychological, emotional, spiritual, depths, water, right? Mercury trine Saturn says, okay, let's really have this serious conversation and have it be believed, or there's a gravitas here. There's a creating good boundaries and foundations around the ideas that you're sharing. This is a good day that's a good aspect for signing a contract. It's setting it in stone, for as much stone as a Saturn and Pisces could possibly have. It's a nice working aspect for being taken seriously, for wanting to make your thoughts into a reality. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about that. We have Moon at quincunx Mars. We need to be careful about how we are expressing our irritation or anger. We got some good working aspects in the mid-morning. We got Moon trine Saturn, Moon trine Mercury. These are nice working aspects. I would say from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and actually kind of the whole day. I think we have the ability to kind of float along our day, to mostly have a good time, go have brunch. Don't push too hard, but try to enjoy the day. 4:20 p.m., we're going to get Venus sesqui-square Jupiter. These are two planets that have to do with finances. I think that there's really we need to be careful about how we are trying to engage in pleasure and expansion and fun at this time, because I think that there could be an ability, a pretty intense ability to overdo it and to really suffer the consequences of it. Be careful with your wallets, certainly. 4:43 p.m., moon sextile Uranus. You know, we could be feeling kind of like tuned in, turned on. You know, the moon could be feeling kind of liberated in how it feels, right? Maybe, and it had a good cry with the moon conjunct Jupiter, you know, a good like release, this big emotions, now having this like release thing. And then that moon sextile Uranus could either be the release or like a new way of feeling some sort of change here. We have the ability to facilitate our emotional change and freedom here. Moon trine Neptune at 5:44 p.m., which is really lovely. It allows us to kind of engage in our intuitiveness, spirituality, art, you know, really kind of float with it. Honestly, just like float with the feelings. Go paint. At 6:48 p.m., we're going to get a vibe shift. We have the moon going into Leo, playful, dramatic, fun, right? Open-hearted, loyal. Did I say dramatic? Dramatic. And then it is going to sesqui-square the sun. You know, it's both in fire signs, but I do think that there's some sort of kind of like ego trip kind of feeling at this time that could feel kind of frustrating. Like maybe you're not feeling recognized in the ways that we would want. And so we're like, you know, kind of moment. And then at 10:17 p.m., we have the moon opposite Pluto. This could be emotional upheaval. This could be emotional power and control dynamic issues. You know, feeling manipulated or engaging in manipulation, emotional manipulation. We could just be feeling really, really powerfully passionate at this time. So we need to be a little cautious about how that is expressed. But it is in the evening, and so hopefully you're able to like maybe, I don't know, with the moon in Leo, have a good romp in the sheets with your lover and then like let it go. Literally, let it go. Monday, December 8th is the moon's day. We have the moon in somewhat happy. Yeah, I would say pretty happy, jovial, playful, creative, dramatic, loyal, warm-hearted, you know, Leo, having a grand old time. The moon is back in bounds, certainly, and so hopefully we're feeling a little bit more in check with our emotional reality of things, but who knows? We're going to get the moon trine Venus at 11:55 a.m. first aspect of the day. This is a really lovely trine, creative, playful, definitely expansive, very adventurous. I think it's quite lovely. Here's the moon trine Venus. Creative, very creative. There could be some drama in there, but I like it. I like it a lot. We're going to get the moon sesqui-square Mars and then sesqui-square Saturn. Okay, so this is at around 12 p.m., right? We're going to get this moon having this crunchy hit with Mars and Saturn, which are definitely waking up this exact Mars square Saturn aspect today. So, you know, it could be in all the ways that we're feeling playful and passionate with that moon trine Venus. And we're like, yeah, let's go. But like, we can't really quite do the thing that we need to do because we're feeling like we're trying to put all of our feet on the gas and all of our feet on the brake. We can't really like work it out. So there is fire in the sky, right? We have the moon, we have the sun and Mars, like that's fired up, and Venus, like that's super fired up. But we also have a lot of water in the sky. So this is really emotional. I don't know. There's not a lot of earth. Really, it's only this. So I don't think that whatever's going on, we are feeling grounded in any sort of way. And, you know, it could be that our need for adventure is pushing us too far. And so now we are feeling the frustration, especially in the afternoon here. Don't push your luck mid-afternoon. How about that? The Mars square Saturn aspect perfects at 4:15. It's going to hold for a few days. So we've been feeling it for a few days prior, probably all week. And we're going to be feeling for a few days after this. So again, to like just reiterate, we have Mars in this. Mars is out of bounds. He is burnt up though. He is under the beams of the sun. So he's like good news, bad news bears. Like, I don't think he is behaving. I don't think Mars, our anger, passion, aggression, drive, is behaving in ways that are super constructive, right? And it's in this dominating square over Saturn that is in Pisces. He's in this watery Pisces place. He's not doing the best that he could be doing, but Mars is really like pressing all of the gas onto Saturn, and Saturn's like holding back. And we need to be paying attention to where this 25 degrees of Sagittarius and Pisces is happening in our chart. What two parts of life are having this like all systems go and no, having this fight kind of moment here, this conflict, and not really feeling like these things are working together. This is feeling like we're between a rock and a hard place. This is all systems go, but no. We could be feeling pretty exhausted from trying to move forward, to trudge forward, because we just feel like we're like slowly pushing a rock up the hill, very Sisyphus, just pushing a little bit by little bit, and then it rolls back a little bit by little bit. So this energy is really holding for the day. And even though we're feeling fired up and we're feeling passionate, I don't think that we're going to get as much done as we certainly want. So just be diligent about the ways you want to step forward. You want to take your steps forward for the next few days as well. And just really pace yourself. I think that's the thing. It's just really pace yourself here, because there is no way that you're going to get to run at a full sprint. Tuesday, December 9th is Mars's day. Mars is in Sagittarius, out of bounds, under the beams, kind of getting burnt up. Not necessarily the best behaved Mars. Be very interesting to see what comes up. I'm recording this, days ahead. So what's going on, especially with the Mars square Saturn aspect, which is going to continue to be in aspect for today. We are all systems go, but there's a big no, or there's a big hold in the sky. It is this energy that is happening right now is really calling us to be flexible, to be, I think, patient and diligent with the ways that we want to push forward. I don't think it's don't do anything, don't take steps forward. It's conserve your energy wisely so that you don't try to blow it out of the gate and it just like you peter out and just collapse, right? This is a slow but steady wins the race, even though a Mars in Sagittarius does not want to go slow at all, okay? We are going to have some helpful, useful aspects in the early morning into the mid-morning, moon trine sun. That's a decent, passionate little energy, especially with the moon in Leo, trine the sun in Sagittarius. It can be a little bit of a playful, hopefully, assistance. Let's see. Moon trine Chiron. And this, I think, can just facilitate some sort of emotional healing of our inner child, our inner identity. Moon quincunx Saturn, 2:47 p.m. We need to make some sort of adjustment around the things that we're trying to achieve. Now, I've already told us, including myself, that it's not all systems go. It is all systems, one foot directly in front of the other, diligently, patiently. But we want to go. And now we're kind of getting emotionally checked, right? And we could be feeling kind of anxious at this time and really frustrated at this time because we can't push forward in all the ways that we want to go. But this is not the time to put gas on the fire. It's not time for that. So we need to make some sort of adjustment here about how that works for us. Moon trine Mars is a nice working energy. It's playful, it's creative. So it's kind of, again, this interesting dichotomy of foot on the gas, having to make some sort of adjustment to how we're using that brake or how that break is being used, or how we are engaging with that thing that is like holding up the wall in our life. 7:26 p.m. we get the moon square Mercury, and then we get moon square Uranus. This is an interesting little period of time because the moon is kind of waking up this forming opposition between, it's a T-square, this opposition between Mercury and Uranus. And when Mercury was opposing Uranus before in Scorpio, we had all of this, these sudden secrets coming out. We had the realization that on Twitter, so many of the accounts were bot farms, right? Coming from other countries, all of these, very patriotic, family first sort of things, accounts were really coming from like Pakistan and India and other places, which was like wild, right? And that we were kind of finding out that our media is being controlled, as if we didn't know that. But I think that there's more. Something more is waking this up. And so pay attention to this day, because I think that aspect is going to be woken up, and we're going to also be experiencing it tomorrow on Wednesday as well. We're going to need to make some sort of emotional shift to what we think, I think, reality is, or our vision of reality is, with the moon quincunxing Saturn and Neptune today. We need to maybe figure out how we want to emotionally engage with our reality and vision. I think we need to come to, I don't know, maybe start to look at things in a more discerning way, a more critical way with that quincunx, the shape of Virgo. We need to discern better what is real, what is fake, what is reality, what is not. And this could be an opportunity for us to be able to make those adjustments and how we want to move forward in that way. And then at 11:20 p.m., this is the last aspect of the day and the last aspect of this podcast, we have the moon entering tummy ache Virgo. So when the moon enters Virgo, we know that now the moon is trying to kind of like clean up the messes that a dramatic moon in Leo might have made, right? This moon in Virgo, I call it the tummy ache moon because it kind of worries. It becomes more focused on the ways that it can like work, be of service. This becomes more of a health-oriented moon, where the moon in Leo is like, let's play, let's eat all the sugar. And now the moon in Virgo is like, okay, we need to go on a juice cleanse. So we turn from a playful moon to a hardworking, kind of sacrificial moon here. So definitely a vibe shift in the evening, but most of us will be asleep, getting ready for the next day.